What's going on, everybody? Good morning. We have made it to another week, and we have made it to a week with something new to talk about with the Seattle Seahawks. It's not a game, it's not preseason, it's not anything super concrete, not exactly the most exciting event of even the offseason, but we are getting some new stuff this week in the form of organized team activities. Today is the first day of Seattle Seahawk OTAs. By the time this video's up, they've probably already started on the field at the VMAC. So I'm not saying that we're going to learn anything shocking or anything earth-shattering from these OTAs, but they are worth following the best that we can. And you do learn some stuff from them, I believe. So I don't have the exact schedule of which days are actually OTAs and which aren't, but I know they are littered throughout the next 2 weeks. So from today to, I think, June 4th, some days are going to have OTAs and other days are going to be off days. And basically, we're going to start to get an initial idea of how the Seattle Seahawks are viewing this current season, how they're viewing the current roster. So going to be interesting. Going to be fun to try to find out. What is an OTA? Some people might wonder what exactly that means. OTA, like I said, stands for an organized team activity. And it's basically just a catch-all label for spring workouts. I got this article here from Sporting News on the screen here that gives a brief definition of what an OTA is. They are between the mini camps that took place right after the draft, and then you have the mandatory mini camps in June. So OTAs are voluntary. Nobody has to go. Most players do, but not everybody does. If you're hurt, you're obviously not going to participate. If you're in a contract dispute, like this article says, you might sit them out. And maybe you're a veteran who knows what's up. You know how to play football. You're a really good player. You don't need to be part of OTAs necessarily. Now, we have a new coaching staff this year, so I would expect most guys to show up, but there could be a few that don't. And it's obviously not that big of a deal because it is completely voluntary. Teams can have a maximum of 10 OTA practices, and contact is not allowed. There are some other restrictions. So it is something that is pretty fiercely regulated by the NFL. They don't want one team to have really extensive OTAs or really violent OTAs. So that is basically what it is. It's practice. It's a voluntary practice that players can participate in during the month of May. So what are some things that we might see from these OTAs? Again, littered throughout the next 2 weeks. I don't think we're using all 10 this year. My understanding is that we're using like 7 or 8, which a lot of teams probably do that. I think teams use OTAs as an opportunity to start to learn things about their team, but also to show that they're not going to push guys too far this early in the offseason. It is a little bit interesting to note that we're not seemingly using every OTA slot we could when we have this new coaching staff, but there will be plenty of time to sort things out later. There are going to be mandatory practices in June. And then in July, pretty much everybody's going to be in here. We already have all the rookies under contract. There are going to be no rookie holdouts. So we don't have to be pushing things too far right now. But thinking about the OTAs, because we got this Corbin Smith tweet on screen with the announcement of OTA starting today. He has an article talking about some of the interesting things. I'm not going to pull it up because I've got my own things to think about. Now, there's probably some overlap because anybody that follows this team knows what the interesting things about this team are going into the offseason. This part of the offseason, that is. So, things to keep an eye on over the next 2 weeks. I think first would just be the interior offensive line. Center, left guard, right guard. Center, we assume Oluwatimi is going to be the guy. There's not necessarily a guarantee of that. Nick Harris is someone who has experience with our current offensive line coach at UW. Nick Harris was starting there when Scott Huff was the O-line coach. And he does have a little bit of he has more NFL experience than Oluwatimi. So there's no guarantee that Oluwatimi is going to be the starter. It's possible Nick Harris could take it. Maybe a guard bumps over. I'm not completely ruling it out. Left guard, Laken Tomlinson might be the clubhouse leader, but I'm telling people, and I've been sticking to this for a while now, if Laken Tomlinson is the starting left guard when the season starts, that's a very, very troubling sign to me. That is a sign that we have failed this offseason to address that position in any kind of a meaningful way, and we have failed to give this offense a real chance to flourish when you have something like that going on in your starting lineup. And right guard, I figure it'll be Christian Haynes, but I guess Christian Haynes could also end up at the left guard. So even on that level, like, what's Bradford going to do? What's Ankrum going to do? If he's going to be here at all. What's Lomia going to do? There's a lot of things to wonder about in that interior. I think that's the most interesting thing with the team going into OTAs, and we're going to look for early signs of how we view these guys. What side do they line up on? Who looks good? Who doesn't look so good? How much are we moving guys around? That kind of stuff. That's the first thing. Once you get past that, I think that there is definitely intrigue in the cornerback room because we probably got to let some people go. We're a little overloaded there right now. You've got Witherspoon, you've got Woolen, and I'm going to say you have Jackson because we already redid his contract. It would be kind of weird if we redid his contract like this and still let him go when he's clearly worth the money we gave him. So those three guys are probably pretty safe. But then you've got like Artie Burns, who I'm not really seeing much room for him. Trey Brown, not a good tackler, could be fighting for his life a little bit because of the Mike McDonald focus on tackling for defensive backs. So Kobe Bryant is another guy who didn't show that much last year. He was hurt a lot. When he did play, it wasn't really very good. So I want to see what happens at cornerback. Who gets let go? You've got Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James coming in as rookies. So that's 8 players I just listed. If one of them moves to safety and then you let Artie Burns go, that's still 6. So there could be some movement going on there. There could be like a trade. You could cook up a trade for like a future 7th round pick just to get something. But we're not going to be able to keep all these cornerbacks. And I want to see who the coaching staff seems to like, who looks good as we head towards the season, because there are going to have to be some decisions made there. I'd also say Sam Howell, assuming that the quarterbacks are going to be there. We know that Geno Smith is the starter, but we also know that it has been said that the team really likes Sam Howell. Now we get to start to get an idea of how much they actually like him and whether or not their liking of him is merited based on what we see in OTAs. Now, Sam Howell is at this point a little bit of an NFL veteran. He's been in the league a couple years, so he should be able to look fine in an OTA. It would be kind of weird if he went out there and looked really bad, like he was some kind of UDFA rookie, like Tua's brother at our rookie mini camps didn't look good, but he was a UDFA rookie. You're not shocked by that. But I do want to start to get an idea of whether or not this team actually really does like him, or if that's just something they say, and at the end of the day, they just wanted a cheap backup, which is what Sam Howell is. So if we could start to get a feel for what Sam Howell might be able to bring to the table here, I think that would be a good use of the OTAs. And there isn't too much else other than that. Maybe we start to get a little clarification on the back end of the wide receiver depth chart. We know what the front's going to be with the top 4, but are we going to carry 6 receivers or 5 receivers? And who's the 5th and hypothetical 6th receiver going to be? Maybe we could get clarity into that. Tackle is pretty much set. Tight end is set. Running back, I feel like running back is set. I guess Holani could go, but we gave him a non-trivial amount of guaranteed money. I think that he's pretty well locked in, so I'm not really thinking too much about any of that. And defensively, I guess Draymond Jones would be interesting. They said he's going to start playing edge. If he actually starts doing it, then we'll kind of have an idea of what we might be getting into here, and everybody's going to feel a certain way about that. So let's see what Draymond Jones does, starting with the OTAs, assuming he's there, by the way. I guess that's no guarantee. I guess that's the first part of OTAs that are interesting, right? Who shows up? But I would expect most people to show up because we have a brand new coaching staff right now. But linebacker, I feel like I know what's going to happen at linebacker. Not to say it's not interesting to see how Knight looks, to see if he's ready to be a backup. But I think we all know that no matter what happens, Baker and Dodson are going to be the starters. Nwosu and Mafe are going to be the starters on the edge. Maybe it's good to... It'll be good to see if Nwosu's ready to play. Safety, it's going to be Love and Jenkins. I can't imagine anything else. So, to me, that's not all that compelling. And, yeah, that's really about it in terms of the most interesting stuff. Maybe nose tackle, because we got 3 guys, which is a little bit of a logjam, but realistically, I think we're going to carry all 3 guys, and we're just going to try to have a really firm rotation there with Reed, Young, and Hankins. I think that's really about all that's going on in terms of intrigue with these OTAs. Obviously, there are going to be some questions with how Mike McDonald is going to run his OTAs, but that's also going to be something that we, on the outside, don't necessarily get to see that much of. Obviously, I'm not going to the OTAs. I'm not going to be watching personally. I'm not going to be in the huddles during the OTAs, but we're going to have some beat reporters there, and if they say things that are compelling, if they say things that I think are interesting, I'll pass it along in videos. But realistically, I think that runs down most of the stuff that we're going to start to really learn. And if any of the rookies want to flash and show, hey, we're ready to contribute now. Like, we'd love to see Byron Murphy flash because we're leaning on him so much this year. All right, I think that's about it. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks.